Have you ever thought about the fact that people who generally do good for the society end up getting assassinated? I thought it would be easier to bring up few examples so that it'll be easier to follow along, but I felt quickly discouraged because even bringing up dead people assassinated is going to bring up a lot of difference of opinion. So I would encourage you to make your own template in your head and follow along with me as we go through this video. So let's assume a society starts to go bad. Maybe the government or the ruling body is mistreating the citizens. Maybe the social norms are outdated and it seems to be causing a lot of people to suffer. Oppression being forced to an extreme, stereotype leading to violence among groups of people. And then a person goes, wait, are we sitting and watching this happen? Am I the only person who's seeing this? They can't tolerate it any longer. They start talking about it. Then few of the other people who noticed that this was happening but didn't really want to stick their neck out for this start following them. And then it escalates and escalates. And it becomes almost hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, there's a saner tomorrow. Then, bam, the main guy gets assassinated. Now, let's look at this from a very purely structural perspective instead of looking at it from a morality perspective. The agent of strong change, regardless of whether you agree that they are good or bad, the common denominator is that they bring about a huge destabilization in the society. And destabilization of structures usually provokes and threatens power, identity, and stability. Now, at some point, women were getting thrown into funeral pyres, and people thought that was a very sane thing to do. People justified it because they weren't looking at this from an unbiased point of view. They were looking at this from their identity because this is part of my culture and the culture is usually part of my identity. No, no, I have to kill my son because he married a girl of lower caste. He desecrated my culture. The my here is the identity. It's not just perceived as a sociological violation, but as a personal attack. You who is outside of this can easily go, oh, that's so barbarous. Why would even somebody do that? But in the person's head who is capable of doing such a thing, what is happening is that somebody is coming to stab them and they are just defending themselves. That is the equivalent of what is happening, that they are getting personally attacked, they are getting something of themselves is being destroyed and they have to stand up now and defend themselves. Now, one guy who internalized this is capable of such things. Now, imagine if that was 10 guys. Imagine if that was a whole state. Imagine if that was a whole country. Imagine the capacity of destruction we are talking about. The agent of change here has introduced psychological discomfort into the equation. Like somebody just came and said, like, hey man, I just think what you have believed in for the entirety of your life has been a lie. Here, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to learn about a very interesting concept called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is something that happens when your brain is forced to hold two contradicting ideas simultaneously. So there is a whole fight going on in your head about what is true. Did we perceive the reality to be wrong? Now, what are we to conclude from this? So the individuals that are coming in contact with such a thing, two things happens to them. A, they notice the inconsistencies and update their beliefs. Or B, they justify their behavior and ignore or attack the opposing idea. Now the group is polarized. Group A has successfully identified with the new idea, whereas the group B is successfully retained their old idea. And they have both integrated that as their identity. But structurally speaking, if you take a step back and see the situation, now there has been made a strong us versus them mentality. Let's imagine you are playing a team sport. You are loyal to your team. And if your team wins, you won. Even though that's not what exactly happened, it's a distributed win, it's not a personal win. But an individual always perceives it as a personal win, even though they've just contributed to the team and the team as such has won. And the exact same thing happens to the losing team. They do not perceive this as a collective failure, a collective loss, but rather they see this as a personal failure and a personal loss. Nobody wants to be the failure, right? You would do anything to avoid becoming the failure. But in a game, there's a clear way to determine who won, who lost. In a game, there is clear set of rules. There are violations, which when you do it, automatically makes you lose. And there's a very clear, distinctive way to determine who won and who lost. But in a society among two polarized groups, there are no rules, there are no violations, there is no clear way to establish who won and who lost. And in this sort of situation, it is easy to escalate this into physical violence. A simple ideological difference is now escalated to the point of physical violence. An idea is essentially something a complex and a sophisticated organism is capable of. You would believe an organism that is capable of such superior cognition would be able to meet it with the same level of superior cognition instead of regressing back into its animalistic ways of physical violence. But hey, regression is a very strong defense mechanism, and of course when your identity is being threatened, it's very easy to regress and choose that defense mechanism. You would think that the sophisticated creature, complex creature that is capable of such high cognition would be able to just sit down and negotiate, sit down and interact with each other about their ideas, understand the pros and cons of it, reach a definitive negotiation where both of them are able to walk away with understanding that we did the same thing for the purpose of social cohesion. But no, we regress, we fight, we escalate it physically. We think that this is us defending ourselves. We think that the other party is completely insane and stupid for going and choosing that idea, to stick with that idea. Because the escalation was never about the idea in itself. If it was, it would be easier to sit down and talk about it. It is about identity. It is about me. Disagreement is not towards the opinion or the perception anymore. This is a personal attack towards my existence. This is no longer about good versus bad, or what is better in long term. Is it affecting everyone involved? This is about saving myself, saving my ego. So, what extent would I be willing to go to save my ego?